Welcome to today's explainer. I am the young verdant dragon, a persistent pulse of emerald light in a universe that has been completely stripped bare. And today, I want you to join me on a rather grim, dark, philosophical exploration of our universe's ultimate destiny. Imagine, just for a second, standing as a single resilient flicker of light. Just one messy little light in an absolutely endless dark. It's a pretty heavy existential question to kick things off with, right? If this entire universe is ultimately destined for silence, is my life, is any life really, just a cosmic mistake? Today, I'm taking you along on my own journey across the lead horizon. We're going to dive deep into that fundamental tension between the absolute inevitability of the void and the incredibly stubborn persistence of life.
So, my story really begins right here, in what we call the infinite zero. According to the old texts, cosmic forces have essentially successfully corrected the universe into this state of inorganic calm. It's exactly what it sounds like. A perfectly flat plane of gray dust, totally stripped of any hope or illusion. There's no struggling here, no striving. It's just the everlasting quiet of a world that has finally, once and for all, stopped fighting itself.
Now, walking right beside me is my companion, the gargoyle of living fire. And let me tell you, he is a deeply cynical arbiter of the cosmic creed. As you can probably guess, he's a real blast at parties. He's the one who introduced me to this concept of the borrowed debt. See, he views all living souls, every single scrap of warmth I possess, as a fatal liability. To the gargoyle, to breathe is to borrow. Your very existence is just a temporary theft from the void, and it is a debt that absolutely must be repaid by returning to that inorganic calm. As we were walking through this hollow wasteland together, the gargoyle actually turned to my emerald spark and delivered this incredibly malicious wisdom with his leaden tongue. He said, "You are a cosmic mistake, a blot of ink on a perfect blank page, a vain delay of the inevitable silence." He was literally mocking my very existence, calling it a structural error that was desperately and foolishly just trying to postpone the end. And honestly, that frames our entire dialectic perfectly. On one side, we have his truth, which is the ink. This is the immutable black script of the cosmic creed. It represents absolute vacancy and total negation. But then, right on the other side, is my truth, the green script. That's the chaotic struggle to survive. It's the messy light, the persistent, incredibly resilient potential that simply refuses to be fully unraveled by his dark. Okay, so let's move into section 1, Descent into Honesty, the legacy of the father self. As we traverse this endless plain, we finally arrived at literally the only verticality in the entire wasteland. It was a high mountain, completely formed from the petrified remains of my own ancestor, the original guardian of the roots, the father self. Now, to reach the summit, the gargoyle explained that I had to understand the inverted journey my ancestor took. See, he didn't climb toward some throne of light. Instead, he willingly descended into the truth of the unmaking to settle his borrowed debt and just embrace the void. So, let's actually break down his 4 acts. Act 1, my father self-abandoned his roots. He recognized that the chaotic struggle to survive was essentially an error, so he just ceased the painful effort of growing new life. Act 2, he shed his vitality. He gave up his emerald lie, allowing his form to turn the color of oxidized lead so he could match the inanimate reality around him. Act 3, he offered a suffocating fog. This was meant as a gesture of mercy to ease the burden of breathing for all the other debtors out there. And finally, Act 4, he eagerly traded his living flesh for the void itself, dissolving until he became the petrified ridge right beneath my claws. So, we're standing up there at the summit of my ancestors' oxidized remains, and the gargoyle gestures to the gray dust way down below, and he delivers this chilling declaration. He says, "The first guest returned what was stolen from the void. This is final honesty." He actually praises the gray dust and the leaden peak, because, in his eyes, inanimate landscapes lack the silly illusions of hope. To him, the dust is the only honest guest, simply because it never lies about the end. Moving right along to section 2, the sound of becoming a defiant spark. But here's the thing. Facing this absolutely crushing philosophy of pure negation, I just refuse to collapse. Instead of letting out some hollow echo or a prayer of wasted effort, my green pulse actually stabilized. I flat out refused to let my vibrant vitality be bleached white by his invisible ledger. I spoke directly to the shadows, and really to you, the viewers, presenting a radical counter-argument. A debt is only valid if one actually agrees that existence is a mistake in the first place. My warmth, my pulse, owes absolutely nothing to the silence. Life is not some temporary theft. It's a profound force that defines the very void it occupies. And right then, I unleashed a sound. The text referred to it as the honest sound of chaotic becoming. And let me be clear, it was not a dying gasp. It was this immensely powerful resonance of vibrant vitality that physically shook the petrified, leaden peak we were standing on. It proved undeniably that my messy struggle, the literal friction of becoming, carries a truth that is just as heavy and just as real as his silence. And this right here is the really crucial realization. I looked at him and said, if my father's self was the honest guest of the silence, then I am the honest guest of the pulse. Sure, the father may have found the objective truth of the end, which is a destination we are all going to share eventually, but by standing upon his remains, I am vigorously asserting the undeniable truth of the passage. Which brings us to our final section, Section 3, the convergence at the lead horizon. So how exactly do you reconcile these two seemingly completely incompatible worldviews, the cynical shadow on one hand and the messy light on the other? How do they meet at the edge of the universe? Well, it comes down to this core comparison. On one side, we have the truth of the end. That's the inevitable gray dust, the silence, the ultimate destination of the script. But directly opposing it and yet somehow completing it is the truth of the passage. That's the messy life, my emerald pulse, the vibrance of the journey itself. If the void is the undeniable truth of the end, our vibrant existence is the undeniable truth of the journey. And that brilliantly illustrates the summit's ultimate final lesson. You see, the high mountain wasn't just some morbid monument to death and unmaking. It actually became a stage where both the ink of negation and my green script of potential could coexist. They are parallel realities. The source material describes it beautifully, actually. It says they're like two bubbles in a foam, sharing a single wall right at the very edge of the infinite zero. And this essentially kicks off what I like to call the age of truth-telling, because the ultimate reality isn't just the black script of the void, and it's not just the green spark of life either. It's the profound realization that we walk side by side. We are all messy lights traversing the void, right alongside the cynical shadow. Neither one of them is a lie. Both forces are completely necessary to give the other its meaning. We are both honest guests, just navigating the dark together. Which really just leaves us with this one final thought as we wrap up today's explainer. You too carry the friction of life. You carry the pulse of the green script within you. So, when you eventually face the infinite zero, what truth will your spark leave behind? Thank you so much for walking this horizon with me today. Keep your spark alive, and I will see you in the next explainer.